Cities of the Underworld goes around the world and investigates the infrastructure of underworlds, tunnels, caves, etc. that are under most every city in the world, both ancient and more recent, domestic.
Is this something that you can do here in the U.S. as well as other parts of the world?
We've done a number of shows, New York, Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, New Orleans. It's amazing when you start looking beneath your feet what you really find. I mean, both from a historical standpoint and an engineering standpoint. Here in the United States, there's a gigantic works being done, even as we speak, at hidden infrastructure, tunnels and so forth being dug that we cover in the show.
Is this your first TV project?
No, I've done a lot of stuff in the sports adventure realm for ESPN and Travel Channel and so forth, lots of hosting things.
How did this type of program come to you, and how did you pitch to the History Channel?
I was not the producer, and those producers are friends of mine who I'd worked with before, so they hired me onto this project. It's an interesting story. They were, the husband is actually Turkish, and he was very aware of the fact that beneath Istanbul, there are ancient underworlds, cisterns, and so forth, and anyone in Istanbul knew about this, and they're always discovering more. So the very nature of that city encouraged him to look elsewhere, and sure enough, anywhere you look, pretty much there's an underworld. And so they developed a show that literally took the audience underground with a guy who explores these tunnels and tries to tell the story of all these underworlds as another kind of identity of these places, you know, a different world underneath the streets. Along with that, you learn about the streets above as well. So it's a total experience.
Is there a common theme at all among these underworlds, or does each one have its own story behind it?
I would say, for the most part, they stand alone. You're in Dublin learning about Vikings and how the Vikings founded that city in many ways. And how the underworld supported them, literally and figuratively. You're in Prague, and you're learning how Hitler created underground factories when his above-ground factories were destroyed by the Allied bombs. In Tokyo, or in Hiroshima anyway, we learned about the survivor of the atomic bomb. I could go on and on. Every show has a different kind of story to tell about the underworld's role in the life of that city.
Which was the most surprising?
Well, we did Belize in the rainy season. I was aware that there are underground rivers and so forth in that country, but I was not aware of how extensive they were, nor the roles of those undergrounds in the Mayan civilization. We were really covering it from that angle. Caves to the Mayans were the entrance to hell. That's actually a very common situation in many cultures. You would not go into these caves because you wouldn't want to go into hell. But the gods are in there, so you have to appeal to them. So as things got worse and worse for the Mayans and their civilization ended at some point, they began to appeal deeper and deeper into those caves, doing their sacrifices further and further. And so our story really tracks that effort and ends up getting as deep as you can go, which is what the Mayans eventually had to do. It was a very surprising experience to find out how the underworld worked for them.
Did you, I have to ask, did you have to conquer like any fears or something before you started going into these tunnels and caves?
I never liked scorpions, and I've run into too many of them. I've never, nobody likes a big fat spider or a bat flying into their head and things like that. So there's some very real wildlife that I run into. I don't like the smell of sewage. I don't think anybody does, and so you have to kind of get used to that. The more sewer stories you cover, and there's a lot of those. So yeah, there's a few environmental factors that I had to kind of take a big deep breath, no pun intended, and go into.
Was there one that was memorable for you that may not, to the rest of the audience, it's going to be just like every other episode, but for you it's going to be very personal?
We did a show on Jerusalem that was remarkable, to say the least, that really tried to tell the story of the apocalypse and how undergrounds of all of Israel really had to do with the notion of the apocalypse. So from an intellectual standpoint, it was a very challenging show to grasp and be a part of. The incident that was most exciting to me and most surprising was that we were able to get access to the Dome of the Rock. It's the Temple Mount area of Jerusalem. This is a Palestinian-controlled quarter of the old city of Jerusalem, and not easily accessed by anyone, let alone a non-Muslim American TV crew. And through luck and hard work on the part of a fixer there, we were able to get access, and it was a very friendly access. It was a very, we're glad to have you kind of feeling. And I was very honored to walk into this ancient building that's a part of the Islamic faith and experience an underground within it, which is to say the Cave of Muhammad. And it was a thrill. You know, it was a thrill to put that on camera, a thrill to be a part of this, a thrill to show that something that was seemingly so dangerous and forbidding was not really that way at all. So I took great pride in that experience.
Wow, it's just...
Isn't that amazing?
Well, I hope best of luck to you in the future. Is there going to be a second season of this program?
We're actually in the middle of it right now on 9 o'clock on Monday nights, including tonight. There's going to be one on Dublin every Monday night on the History. There's another show where I think they've aired 3 of them so far, and it's a show of 13. So keep watching.